Hey everyone. Today we're covering a horrifying case that shows the dark side of chasing fame. Let's begin. Wanting to be famous online seems exciting, but it secretly costs a lot. Many people chase fame without knowing how heavy it feels. Hateful comments, everyone watching you, jealousy, and huge stress. The biggest danger? Losing your private life. Over time, this pressure can crush you. It causes anxiety, makes you feel worthless, and drains you completely. Fame might not last, but the pain can stay forever. Anastasiya Komlovskaya, a young woman from St. Petersburg, better known online as Nastya Grishman, dreamed of becoming a top influencer. Determined to achieve success no matter what, she managed to build a following of more than 300,000 across her social platforms in just a few years. Charismatic, eccentric, and multi-talented, Anastasiya had a vibrant online presence that resonated with many.
Despite her colorful personality and creative spark, Anastasia's life came to a sudden and heartbreaking end. She had dreams, big ones. She was planning a fresh start, hoping to leave behind the chaos and begin a new chapter. Tragically, someone she once trusted and cared for made sure that would never happen. Anastasiya Komlovskaya was born on February 7, 1996, in the city of St. Petersburg. She was the only child her parents had together. Her father struggled with alcohol and left the family shortly after she was born, leaving her mother, Elena, to raise her alone. Despite working 2 jobs, Elena constantly struggled to make ends meet. Anastasia's early years were far from easy. Her father played no role in her upbringing. He never provided financial support or showed any interest in her life. Anastasiya and her mother lived together in a cramped dorm room on the outskirts of the city. There wasn't even space for a separate bed. So, until the age of 12, she shared the same bed with her mother. As she reached her teenage years, Anastasiya still had no personal space to call her own. She lacked even the smallest corner where she could be alone with her thoughts. This weighed heavily on her emotionally, but there was little she could do to change her reality. In 2008, Elena brought Anastasiya to the town of Kolpino, where her former mother-in-law lived, and left her in the care of the elderly woman. Anastasiya had barely known her paternal grandmother before this, but they quickly bonded and got along well. At the time, her father was living in a different region and had no contact with his mother or his daughter. Anastasia's grandmother lived in a modest house, but for the first time, the young girl had her own bed and even her own room. She was overjoyed. Still, her mother's visits became less and less frequent, something that deeply saddened her. Elena had started focusing on her own life. Though she initially tried to visit every weekend, that changed once she entered a new relationship and remarried. Her daughter, from a previous marriage, clearly didn't fit into the picture of her new family. While Elena continued to send financial support, her in-person presence faded almost completely. Anastasiya felt abandoned and emotionally isolated. She struggled with sadness and tried to find her place in the world. Deprived of emotional support and attention, she began channeling her pain into art, drawing dark, intense images that reflected her inner turmoil. Her grandmother did everything she could to make up for the absence of Anastasia's parents. She provided care, warmth, and encouragement, fostering her granddaughter's creative spirit. She made sure Anastasiya had all the materials she needed to express herself artistically. By the time she turned 15, Anastasiya began expressing her desire to get a tattoo and some piercings. Her grandmother didn't scold her or say no. Instead, she simply asked if it would make her happy. When Anastasiya said yes, her grandmother not only gave her the money, but also accompanied her to the salon. That was the beginning of a transformation. Anastasiya began altering her appearance gradually. She designed her own tattoo sketches, which were later inked onto her body. She had a deep love for Korean pop culture with its unique style of modernization, and was an avid fan of anime. She regularly attended comic conventions and participated in cosplay contests, impressively transforming into her favorite characters. She became the kind of bold, attention-grabbing teen others admired. Wherever she went, she stood out. Still in high school, Anastasiya purchased her first basic tattoo machine.
She started tattooing herself and others, earning her first personal income. Over time, she refined her technique and built experience. Her work grew increasingly detailed and professional. For areas she couldn't reach, other tattoo artists helped bring her original sketches to life. Alongside her passion for body art, she developed an interest in piercings. She had multiple ear piercings, as well as ones on her nose, lip, tongue, navel, and other parts of her body. Later, she began decorating her face with ink as well. She altered the shape and fullness of her lips, wore colored contact lenses, and frequently changed her style. She wasn't just fascinated by art, she was determined to turn herself into a living piece of modern expression. During her youth, Anastasiya struggled with emotional difficulties, including a severe eating disorder. She barely ate and became extremely thin, on the verge of serious health complications. Though she eventually stabilized her diet and overcame many of these challenges, she remained physically delicate and slender. Anastasiya, however, considered her appearance an advantage. Her petite frame allowed her to fully embody her favorite comic book and anime characters. After high school, Anastasiya enrolled in a technical college, choosing an unconventional field for a young woman: auto mechanics. From a young age, she was learning computer programming and web design while working as a tattoo artist at a local studio. In her free time, she painted and sketched, constantly creating new and bold characters and images. At 16, Anastasiya launched several profiles on popular social media platforms, where she actively engaged with her audience. She shared photos, her original art, and the tattoos she designed for herself and others. Her vibrant personality, artistic flair, and unique aesthetic quickly caught people's attention, and her follower count began to rise rapidly. Anastasiya was a style chameleon. Her look was a blend of gothic and anime influences, and she had a natural talent for storytelling. She shared her thoughts, hobbies, and life goals in a way that resonated with her audience. Many, especially younger viewers, saw something familiar in her struggles and passions, and they supported her by liking, commenting, and subscribing. Over time, she built a loyal community around her, a group made up of anime fans, lovers of body art and piercings, cosplay enthusiasts, and others who connected with her worldview. Without even realizing it, Anastasiya had become an influencer with a strong and growing presence. Her voice mattered, and her audience listened. As her follower count surged and she began receiving collaboration and sponsorship offers, Anastasiya realized she could earn a living by simply doing what she loved online. By the age of 19, this rising internet star had saved enough to move out of her grandmother's house and relocate to St. Petersburg. There, she found work as a tattoo artist at a well-known studio and rented her own apartment. After the move, she adopted a more striking stage name, Grishman, and started thinking about taking her talents to television. She auditioned for a popular reality show similar to Bad Girls Club, but didn't make the final cut. Producers felt she didn't quite fit the mold they were looking for. They viewed her more as an unconventional creative, rather than the type of tough persona the show featured. Still, Anastasiya wasn't discouraged. She doubled down on building her online presence. By February 2019, at just 23, Anastasiya had become a well-known and in-demand tattoo artist. She was earning solid income, mentoring others in her craft, and also began offering courses in web design. Around this time, she joined TikTok and her popularity exploded. To fast forward just a bit, Anastasiya's social media following would eventually top 300,000. But she wasn't content to stop there. Her goal was to become a million-follower influencer. She had the talent, drive, and momentum to make it happen, until she met a man whose actions would first shatter her spirit and later cost her her life. Who was Dmitry Chernish? Dmitry Chernish was born on February 15, 1998, in the city of Omsk. His mother passed away when he was very young, leaving him with only faint memories of her. Not long after, his father remarried. Dmitri was then raised by a stepmother who showed him little affection and rarely gave him the attention or care he needed. Lacking love and emotional support, Dmitri grew up withdrawn, shy, and quiet.
His favorite pastime was drawing. Alongside regular school, he began attending a local art studio where he made his first real friends and gradually started to open up and feel more comfortable around others. As a teenager, Dmitri's behavior began to shift. He started interacting more with peers, both in person and online. On his social media profiles, he shared his love for music and poetry and often posted personal reflections, frequently musing on life and death. However, his writing style was clumsy and, at times, a bit unsettling. He spoke openly about his fascination with walking through cemeteries. He said he found peace in studying the photos of young women on gravestones, imagining what their short lives might have been like. He also shared his tattoo designs, mostly drawings of cars and Japanese kanji phrases. On several occasions, he described what he believed to be the ideal partner, focusing not just on personality traits, but also physical appearance and age. These posts seemed odd, especially since, at the time, Dmitry had already been in a long-term relationship with Margarita, a girl he'd met in high school. Margarita shared many of his views and supported him in everything. So when Dmitry decided to move to St. Petersburg in February 2017, she didn't protest. Instead, she took charge of organizing the entire relocation. She bought the tickets, found them an apartment, and worked on getting their new life set up. To make ends meet, both Dmitry and Margarita took on various freelance gigs. They offered web design and software development services and picked up whatever work they could find. Dmitry also enjoyed car restoration and was looking for opportunities in that field. It's unclear exactly when Dmitry decided to begin creating adult-themed content, but he brought Margarita into the project. She became both his business and on-camera partner. Dmitry acted as the producer and performer, crafting storylines, character concepts, and costumes, often working side by side with Margarita. This controversial and unauthorized activity generated a decent income. However, Dmitry kept most of the money for himself and made all the financial decisions. Margarita didn't seem to mind. She trusted him completely and relied on him for direction. By 2020, Dmitry had bought himself a Mercedes-Benz, something he proudly showcased on social media. It's also worth noting that Dmitry had 2 prior convictions, one for theft, committed before his move to St. Petersburg, and another for failing to comply with mandatory military service. As a result, he was legally prohibited from leaving the country, but that restriction didn't appear to concern him at the time. Margarita first met Anastasiya Grishman when she went to her studio for a tattoo. The 2 women hit it off instantly and became fast friends. Anastasiya worked meticulously, and Margarita was thrilled with the result. So when Dmitry later wanted a new tattoo, Margarita didn't hesitate to recommend Anastasiya, calling her one of the best in the business. Dmitry brought in his sketch, and together with Anastasiya, they refined the design and scheduled a series of sessions to complete the work. From the very first meeting, it was clear that there was a spark between them. While working together, Dmitry and Anastasiya often had casual conversations that gradually became more personal and meaningful. They discovered they had much in common. Both were raised in single-parent, troubled households. Both had been deprived of love and attention from their families, and both were artistic souls with a passion for tattoos, anime, and cars. Most importantly, they shared an intense drive to achieve fame, no matter the cost. The connection between them grew quickly. They began spending time together outside of the studio, attending car shows, tattoo conventions, and anime-themed events. What started as a friendship soon turned into a passionate romance. They tried to keep their relationship under wraps, since Dmitry was still in a committed relationship with Margarita, whom he had been dating for nearly 5 years. It didn't take long for Margarita to realize what was happening. She deeply regretted introducing her boyfriend to the eccentric Anastasiya. At first, she attempted to resolve things calmly through conversations, but Dmitry's responses were vague and unconvincing. Eventually, Margarita began confronting him directly, expressing jealousy, making demands, and asking him to stop seeing Anastasiya. Dmitry promised he would, but he never followed through. Margarita saw the writing on the wall
but she couldn't bring herself to let go.
She had left her hometown for Dmitry, entered a questionable industry under his influence, and supported him in every possible way, emotionally, financially, and professionally. Now, he was ready to leave her for Anastasia. The situation became even more painful when it was revealed that Dmitry had bought Anastasia an expensive car. He had never made such grand gestures for Margarita, and no one believed anymore that the relationship between him and Anastasia was just friendly. In a moment of emotional distress, Margarita reportedly damaged the car and even made threats about harming herself. But even that wasn't enough to stop Dmitry from walking away. Dmitry moved out of the apartment he shared with Margarita and moved into Anastasiya's rented home. By that point, Anastasiya was already a well-known figure online, with a fan base numbering in the hundreds of thousands. Her new relationship quickly became a topic of interest among her followers, and Dmitry began gaining popularity by association. For someone like Dmitry, who had always longed for fame and attention, this was a dream come true. And he achieved it through his relationship with Anastasiya. He became her manager, assisting with her social media presence, content creation, and online course sales. Their business was thriving, and her audience was growing. But for Dmitry, it still wasn't enough. Soon, Dmitry convinced Anastasiya to become his partner in adult-themed content creation, promising even greater fame and financial rewards. Anastasia agreed. They began filming videos in rented studios or at home, distributing them across various platforms. Her career shifted dramatically, but her popularity continued to grow. Dmitry called her his muse and gave her luxurious gifts. But in truth, it was Anastasia who was paying the real cost of their lifestyle, both with her image and her well-being. In early 2022, Anastasia was invited to appear on the talk show Beyond the Line, where she was asked to speak about her life and the unexpected shift in her career. She didn't see anything wrong with it, but the episode didn't go the way she had hoped. The producer's main goal was to expose the hidden parts of Anastasia's and Dmitry's past. The show brought Anastasia's mother, Elena, into the studio and asked how she felt about her daughter's involvement in the adult entertainment industry. The woman became emotional, said this wasn't how she raised her daughter, and blamed Dmitry for everything that had happened. When Anastasia appeared on stage, she immediately began defending herself and her partner. She claimed that acting in adult films was something she had always dreamed of, and even referred to it as a form of modern art. She openly challenged the show's experts and guests, laughing off their moral lectures about how one should live. Margarita, Dmitry's ex, also appeared as a guest. She spoke about her long-term relationship with Dmitry and described how Anastasia had come between them without hesitation. Margarita suggested that Dmitry was more interested in Anastasia's fame than in her as a person, and that he planned to use it for his own benefit. In closing, she described Dmitry as emotionally and physically aggressive toward his partners. When asked whether she was concerned that her daughter might be living with someone abusive, Elena brushed it off. She said Dmitry seemed quiet and incapable of harming anyone. On screen, Dmitry came across as awkward and unable to speak clearly. Many viewers found it strange to watch two attractive, confident women fighting over someone who seemed so underwhelming and lost. A few months after the talk show aired, where Anastasia had fiercely defended Dmitry, their relationship began to fall apart. Dmitry had fully abandoned his work in the tech industry and was now relying solely on Anastasia's income, pushing her to appear in explicit content more and more frequently. Anastasia felt trapped in the situation. She decided it was time not only to end the relationship, but also to leave the country altogether. By that time, Anastasia had saved enough money to make a move. She confided in a close friend that she was seriously considering relocating to South Korea. Her plan was to open a tattoo studio there, and she had already begun researching the legal and business aspects of such a move. She started selling off some of her belongings and was preparing herself for a difficult conversation with Dmitry. Their breakup didn't go smoothly. Dmitry knew that if Anastasia left, he would lose everything: his home, income, and growing online relevance. Nevertheless, by July 2022, Anastasia finally convinced him to pack up his things and move out of her apartment. Some believe she was so determined because a new person had entered her life. Blogger and influencer Kirill Kitsenko. On July 31st, Anastasia met up with Kirill, and the two had a wonderful time together, spending the evening walking around and enjoying each other's company. However, just hours after they parted ways, Kirill received an unexpected message from Anastasia. She told him it would be their last meeting, and that she didn't want to see him again. Kirill was shocked and tried to call her, but she didn't pick up. After that night, Anastasia's behavior changed dramatically. She stopped seeing anyone in person and no longer answered phone calls. She would only respond to text messages, often saying she wanted to be left alone and needed time to process things. Though she continued to post on social media and share stories, she stopped doing live streams. Her mother and closest friends were the first to express concern. They had no idea what was really going on. Anastasia had essentially vanished, remaining active only online. On August 2nd, a close friend of Anastasia's ran into Dmitry at a social gathering. When asked about Anastasia, he suddenly said something chilling, that his ex-partner had asked him to help her go away, and he had obliged. He refused to go into details, but the friend knew something terrible had happened. For a week, the friend stayed silent, unsure what to do, holding on to hope that Anastasia was alive and would reach out. Finally, on August 9th, she decided to call the authorities and shared everything she knew. Law enforcement arrived at Anastasia's apartment that same day, but no one answered. Authorities forced the door and entered. Inside, the scene was chaotic. Half-packed suitcases lay on the floor, and the bed was soaked. In the bathroom, they discovered Anastasia's lifeless body. She was 26 years old and had been missing for over a week. Her body was already starting to decompose. The medical examiner confirmed her death was caused by multiple stab wounds to her chest and neck. It appeared she had been preparing for her move when she was attacked so brutally. Dmitry was immediately the prime suspect and was arrested the next day. On July 31st, after a date with Kirill, Anastasia went home. Dmitry showed up shortly after and saw the packed suitcases. He realized she intended to leave and that their relationship was over. She had likely told him about her new boyfriend. According to Dmitry, they got into a heated argument. In a fit of rage, he grabbed a knife and things spiraled out of control. He claims he fled in shock, then later returned to help but found Anastasia already gone. He said he moved her body into the bathtub, left it there, and then pretended her social media accounts were still active to make it look like she was alive. That same day, after consulting a lawyer, Dmitry changed his story. He claimed Anastasia had been deeply depressed and asked him for a favor to end her life. He insisted he was only helping her with her permission. During a reenactment for investigators, Dmitry demonstrated how he allegedly stabbed Anastasia, but when asked what she said last, he admitted she had asked him to call emergency services, contradicting his claim about her supposed desire to die. Over the following months, Dmitry returned to the apartment several times. He blocked and taped over vents and cracks to delay the smell of decomposition, and even draped Anastasia's body with perfume he found in the apartment. On January 22, 2023, Dmitry pleaded guilty to the crime, continuing to claim that Anastasia had asked him to help her. His trial dragged on, but by January 2024, he was sentenced to 8 years in a maximum security prison. In a final note, Anastasia's mother allowed media crews to film at her daughter's funeral for a fee. Anastasia's grandmother, mourning the loss of her granddaughter, harshly criticized her daughter, Anastasia's mother, for allegedly exploiting her child's death for money. Thanks for watching, everyone. Thanks for watching. Please like, comment, or share. It helps me grow. See you next time.